Hello, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, the host of your show. We are live on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page. We're here on YouTube. Wherever you are joining us, I want to say a huge welcome. We have got such an exciting time today. I just got all bubbly inside. I cannot wait for today's call. So it is, depending on where you are, February the 14th, Valentine's Day. I would love to send out my love to everybody. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. It's actually February the 15th here in New Zealand, where I'm broadcasting from. We had a fantastic weekend. My husband took me away, which was really lovely. Not because of Valentine's Day. It was actually a delayed anniversary from quite a few months ago, but we got there in the end. We went bushwalking. We went and did clay pigeon shooting, which was amazing. And then we got home last night and we got an announcement from the government that we're going back into lockdown. So going from being out and about with lots of people, sunshine, I've woken up to torrential rain in lockdown. And as I sit here chatting to you, I'm just reminded how everything can change in an instant, which is kind of where the entire podcast sort of comes from, is these near-death experiences, these sudden crisis moments, these things which happen in our lives, which are totally outside of our control. Today, we have got a very special guest. We've got Dr. Laurence Brock, and Dr. Laurence has been on the show before. We did an episode, quite some time ago, wasn't it? A few months back. And
it seems like almost a year, actually.
Yeah, it could have been about a year. It was just absolutely wonderful. Dr. Laurence does a lot of work in healing. He talks a lot about love. He's going to be doing some very interesting work today. So you may have your chance to get a little taste test of some of the work that he does. And yeah, I could share a lot about you, but probably best to come from you, Dr. Laurence. So yes. Let me just switch screens here. This is what I need to do when we're live because I can't see everything all at once. Okay. I'll do a little formal introduction. So Dr. Laurence Brock had a near-death experience following a car accident in 1976. During this experience, he came up out of his body and he started on a long spiritual awakening. When he woke up 3 days later, his healing abilities had been activated and life became about connecting with Source and serving others. Today, Laurence has a doctorate in spiritual science and he's helping others to heal. So this is going to be super exciting. I can't wait to see how this plays out today. So Dr. Laurence Brock, welcome back. We are live and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
It's going to be wonderful. So for our listeners who, since this announcement was made, to rush back and have a listen to the episode, are you happy just to share a little bit about your NDE, what happened, yes, and then lead into how that affects the work that you're doing today?
Yes. So I guess the short version is I fell asleep while I was driving, crashed into a tree, and that part I have no recollection of whatsoever. And then I remember myself being out of my body in the white light, not going into the white light, looking down at my body that was leaning against the tree, and a police officer was crouching over me. My experience was very kinesthetic and emotional feeling and physical feeling. Just it felt like the perfect summer day. I love summer, so it's, not too hot, just the perfect temperature and just feeling really nice. There was a sense of kind of knowing everything. And I realized recently I've been saying, and it's kind of knowing nothing, because I didn't need to know anything. It wasn't like there were any questions. So everything was, even saying everything was answered isn't true. It's just because there were no questions. It's just everything was good. Behind me, even though I wasn't facing that way, I knew there was a big white, different color white kind of cloud, and then a white being that was shaped like a person, but kind of white with gold kind of around it. And the being said to me, "You have to go back. Your father wants you to stay." I knew at that time that the father the being was talking about was my spiritual father, not my physical father. Later on, and I had no idea what to make of it. Like nowadays, people talk about near-death experiences. I had never even heard of it, or I know that phrase was coined around that time, but I didn't know anything about that. When I started to, probably the biggest thing that happened was I needed to find out what happened because I had no idea what to make of it. And I started meeting spiritual teachers and healing teachers. When one of them started to talk to me about Mary, actually, first, and the love that Mary had for God, and that she could let in the Christ energy, I go, wow, that was my experience, like how I felt. And when he started talking about Jesus, just the way I felt inside and the images I got in my mind was that being behind me was Jesus. And the other phrase he used was the ocean of divine love and benevolence. And I was like, wow, that was the white light around me, just the feeling of it. And so when it happened, I had no idea what to make of it. I went back into my body. Sometimes people say, did you have a choice? I didn't even, again, everything just seemed so perfect and right. I didn't even, there were no questions. It was just like, yep, and I went back in my body. I came to 3 days later, and the doctor, I remember the look on the neurologist's face just telling me I'm lucky. I assume lucky to make it. One of the nurses, I still remember specifically saying it was touch and go. I didn't get any answers from the doctor about medical stuff, if I had flatlined or anything like that. My dad did come in when I was, about to be in surgery, and he said your skin on your scalp was peeled away, and he saw inside my brain.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty full on.
that part was intense. But after that, I started to meet a lot of really interesting, mystical, magical people, and just something in me just needed to know and find out about death. I started studying the Tibetan Book of the Dead and different, more traditional things about dying and what happens after we pass away.
Yeah, wow. So interesting. And that is you can go into these books and just stay there for such a long time. There's so much information, isn't there? So many things to learn.
Yeah.
So my question as you're talking, and we may have covered this in the episode, I'm not 100% sure, was you talked about Mary, you talked about Jesus,
Yes.
You've mentioned God, you've mentioned the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Did you have any beliefs or any preset ideas before your experience?
Before that, well, I was born in a Jewish family, so my heritage is Jewish. The religious aspect of that, some of it I don't quite believe, but not very much, to tell you the truth. I didn't really think of that. I was, a math and science kind of logical person, and was a little interested in psychology, but I didn't really have strong religious beliefs at all. But it did, believing in Jesus is not something as part of the Jewish tradition. So, but I also learned a lot about the Islamic religion that I feel a great connection to also, a lot of, So what I've been recently saying is not I'm no religion, I'm all religions, because the major religions all have this really wonderful, loving connection to God and to spirit and all things. Even in the Bible, they talk about, Jesus had a near-death experience pretty much. He died, he went to heaven and came back. Just pretty much the same thing happened to me. So.
It's interesting because I hear a lot of different ideas, and then there's one idea which has stuck with me, that actually all religions are they're a different label on the outside, but I'm definitely not trying to offend anybody who may find that a bit harsh, but you know what I'm
you
saying?
might offend some people, but there's the loving
perhaps it's the same thing.
The major religions is very similar, and not to say that it has to be like some people connect to that through Buddha or through Allah or through Abraham in the Jewish religion. That love that comes through God and the supreme God, or whatever you call that is kind of part of most the religions I know of. That's there, So.
Yeah, very, very
when
interesting.
I'm working with someone, it's good to find what that path is for them. So sometimes people don't know, but a lot of so then I have to try to either, if I don't know intuitively, it is try to ask them what their religion they were born is, because a lot of times, even if they don't like it, that is their kind of pathway to connect to God.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I suppose that's a vital piece of that information. So I'd love to chat a little bit more about what you're doing, love to get into some of the practical aspect. If you are listening, you just tuned in, just drop us a message. We can see your comments no matter where you're coming in from. It'll be lovely to make this a bit of an interactive session. So tell us where you're from, tell us anything you like. You can ask your questions to Dr. Laurence. You can make your statements, whatever you like. Let's just have a little bit of feedback and make this a really fun event for everyone.
Sounds good.
Dr. Laurence, I've got somewhere here, somewhere from your website, it says, I have a gift. I see visions from your life, unconscious, past lives and energetic blocks that are in your system.
Yes.
By consciously bringing in spiritual light, healing masters and angels, the blocks are dissolved and healing takes place. My visions and insights give guidance to be more of who you are and to create more of what you want. So that's taken from your bio, from your website.
Wow, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I know. I read that and I thought, oh, I've got to repeat that because that's really interesting to me.
So
So
I
yeah,
wrote that a
tell
long
us.
time ago, and it's like, wow, that's me. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's great though. So how did you go from having your near-death experience? I know a couple of days you woke up and you had these newfound abilities.
It was
What
very
did you do with
gradual,
that?
actually, because again, I was always kind of intuitive, and but I did notice the first thing that was very obvious was my hands became very warm when I touch people, and that was kind of the first clue. And it's my perspective is I would never even believe any of this stuff. That's the thing. So whatever I was experiencing, even that, like, I had doubts about it, but that was a very obvious thing because when people hurt, I could touch them and my hands became warm, very warm, and they would feel better. So there was no denying that part. Like I said, I started to meet spiritual teachers that taught me things, healing teachers, just my own I want to say curiosity, but it was more like a drive to understand this stuff. And so I learned, I studied, I have my doctorate now, and that's part of it. And still I study, I talk to other people that do healing and learn from them and do a lot of reading. And it's interesting because someone said to me the other day, it's like, oh, it's too much work to become enlightened, or just the way they said it. I go, you're never enlightened. It's in the
Yeah.
process of getting there. And right then I was thinking, looking back however many years ago, I'm thinking, wow, compared to then, like I can do so much more now. And I was thinking, wow, thank you to those clients that used to see me. Even though I've helped people a lot, like now it's even way more, what I can see.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. I think the great thing is that as clients, we're all on different levels as well. So we don't need to worry about having it mastered because we're all on our journeys, aren't we? We're all learning and we think we've got it sorted. We don't even understand how much we don't have it sorted because
Yeah.
it's just an unknown point. Yeah.
Well, that
Brilliant.
part's very important to know. And, even when I see things, sometimes I don't know exactly what it is. And just to not have my mind try to jump on it and define it. Because in one way,
Yeah.
by defining it, it's small. And this is just really big and, infinite. So
Yeah.
that's a very important
Yeah.
part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding that we'll never understand, I think, is a big part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some amazing people here. I'm just going to do some shout out. We've got Susie, Eric, we've got Kayan. Oh gee, I can't even read. I need to look at the screen up the top. Apologies for that. Zedek, hello from Southern California. So we've got people tuning in from all over the place. Susie, you're in Wellington. We've got Lisa. Hello, Lisa. You recently had a session with Dr. Brock and had an amazing experience. My husband's tuned in as well. So that's exciting. Let us know if you have any comments like that. We would love to know. The more we can do that, the better the call be. There's something about energy and vibration that that's the way it works. So it's Matt. Okay. Hi, Matt. Sorry, got the wrong there. That's okay. So if you're loving this, just give some likes. If you've got questions, pop them in there. How do you want to do this, Laurence? Do you want me to ask some questions that are coming through, or do you want to share some more about
Sure.
what
Questions
you
are
do?
good. Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll do questions and you can just share as you feel led. So the questions we've got, oh, this is a really good one coming from Eric. How can I best communicate with my higher self?
Well, that's a good question. So,
I know.
a lot of the things that are higher self is a specific thing, and so that is a good question. So generally, our higher self is kind of located right above our head, but the first way we connect to it is in our heart. So uh, you can start to imagine energy in your heart center and allow it to expand. Okay. Um, and then just with intention, there's this kind of light thing, like a ball. The high self a lot looks like kind of a ball of light, or it might look kind of like us, but kind of light. And you can just use your intuition. So, like when you see someone that you don't know and you feel a connection with them, a lot of times it's your high self seeing their high self, and you just feel like you want to connect with them.
Okay.
The work is really done with intention, and we kind of use our imagination, but to differentiate between our imagination and this part, we call it our creative imagination. So we're creating things. Okay, so some people in the audience are starting to do that. So you can imagine your high self as being like a spiritual master, and that will help you connect to that also.
What about on a physical term? Like, what is some practices that you could put in your life, or how do we actually connect? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's part of the answer to the question is there are different things we connect to. There is our high self. We do have like an inner master, and there are masters and angels and saints, all things like that all around us. In one way, it doesn't matter exactly what we're connecting to. We want to trust that the thing that we need at that time is going to come forward. So a lot of times, I mean, there are just thousands of these things there. So you want to have your intention for the highest good and what can serve you at this moment. So when I'm working on people, I don't really connect to my high self very much. Although as I'm saying that, there's sometimes I hear this voice tell me something and I don't know what the voice is. I've just learned to really trust it. I'm wondering. So there are saints, there like Jesus is a very powerful thing. Buddha, there are one of the healing masters that work with me a lot is Imhotep, who is an ancient Egyptian, considered the first medical doctor in Egypt, so, but he comes in there. So there's all sorts of different healing beings around, and you want to kind of be open to what can serve you the best at that time.
Yeah. So in terms of serving the best,
Yes.
can our higher self, can we totally trust it? Can it send us wrong? So if we're trying to tap into our higher self, maybe
Yeah.
we've got a question or an answer. What should I do? I need some wisdom here.
Yeah.
Could our higher self send us down the wrong path so that we learn a lesson, we have a certain experience?
Well, yeah. Well, we cannot be on the wrong path, but there are different choices of what the right path is. So I just think of a funny story of someone gambling and getting information on what to gamble on, like in a casino, and
Yeah.
winning a little bit of money here and there and here and there, and then betting all the money and losing it. And so like a voice telling them. So you want to, on the things on the practical level, you still want to check it out. For me, when I'm looking for information with people, I'm looking for an energy shift to happen. I'm looking for either a healing on some level, whether it's emotional, physical, or even spiritual, that there's a certain alignment that happens. So when it's information, that would indicate it's right information. And it doesn't necessarily, it could be 2 + 2 = 3, and then the person just lights up and their pain goes away in their body. So that part of healing something, that's the purpose of what the information I look for. Our high self does communicate to our basic self a little more easily in a certain way than our conscious mind is always trying to make sense of things, which basically means as soon as it gets any information, it tries to compare it to things we've experienced before, and then
Yeah.
that's not always it. So the trick is leave your mind back, and when the information's here, it's like, well, you don't have it yet. Even though our mind, oh, I see that, it means this, this, this. No, you keep letting it and letting it and letting it, letting it, even like past your eye into the kind of into the center of your head. And then it's like, the information's just like a bright light, or it might not be concrete information like we have. The other thing is a lot of times the information is more in a general direction, and it is not like, people ask me questions all the time about the future, and I'm kind of reluctant to tell them, even though a lot of times I see that, partially because there's a percent chance of what it would be. Plus, it starts to influence people's choices and does not allow them to unfold in that way. So, the person who asked me started to connect to their high self in there somewhere. So that, that part. So even the way I talk is kind of vague, but there's the part that lines up inside. If we have too much, if it's, ABC, then you're going to want to, but there's an experience that goes with that. You're going to want to go ABC again, and you might not be honoring the experience. So that part of the experience, the part of feeling expansive, the part of feeling joy, and that part is really the priority.
Yeah. Oh, that totally makes sense, and I really like that. Okay, we've got a question here. Hello to Jeanette. Hello to Alan, coming in from Washington State. If you have your questions, just pop them in the comments. That would be great. Okay, having been someone who went through religious trauma while in an evangelical Christian church, who had a lot of fear and confusion about God and life, how would you suggest healing from that? Oh, that's a good one.
That person has some past lives to clear. So we'll just.
Oh, it's that simple?
Right. What's that?
You came to that conclusion very quickly. Is that something that
It's
you
not a
regularly
conclusion.
see?
I just see things or know them. It's not,
Oh, wow.
sometimes I have to think about what I'm seeing because it makes no sense to me, but generally I just know stuff. So, yeah. So
Wow.
she has a past life where she was a nun, and it was kind of hard. So we can just ask for the light to clear that. If she could just put her hand on her heart and just breathe in there a little bit, she'll probably feel it start to move a bit for her.
Okay, so if you there, I think it's actually Matt.
Oh, okay.
Kyan or Matt. Yep. Sorry, I'm a little confused. I've got the
That's
comments
okay.
coming. I'm
Whoever it
looking
is
at
was a
4
nun.
screens.
They were female in that other
Yeah.
lifetime, and that,
So just the hand on the heart there, and
yeah.
you think that can start to clear?
Well, it's starting to clear. Putting their hand on their heart and breathing, they might feel it clearing. So.
Yeah, says he's a guy. That's okay. In a past life, perhaps it may have been a little bit different. We
Yeah.
do change genders and different things. That's okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, there it's starting to move. So then he can put his hand on his belly also and feel into there.
Okay, so you can just follow along there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, some of it is there's within, so in the spirit, Jesus is a very powerful being. And so sometimes when people have, especially, if they have, a lot of people don't like the religion they were born into because of what people use it for and what their parents did with it. But it is kind of like weeding out the good part, even though there's a lot of trauma around it. So it's like there's a kind of a grayish area like this, and then there's a line through the center that connects to God. And in this case, it's very thin, almost it looks like a light. So it'd be like a whitish light that goes through there. Okay. And some of that stuff is starting to clear. So yeah, my handshake sometimes when the energy comes in. So
Yeah,
that's a
no,
good
that's
thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
I just felt this overwhelming sense of light and peace. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how I can connect into this. I'm completely just the facilitator, but as you were talking and saying, put your hand on your chest, on your belly, I was
Yeah.
just feeling like, wow, this is just so light and releasing. So I hope that that's helping. I hope that you're able to feel that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, interesting because I get this question all the time, Laurence, as I
Yeah.
get emails, I get a lot of people wanting to talk religion with me, or
Okay.
wanting to talk, my belief system doesn't fit into what I was raised in. And like you said, we're talking about you've researched all these different things.
Yeah.
And is that something similar, or is that specifically for Matt? For someone
I
who's really questioning the
I mean, it
trauma from
was
it?
specifically, but it is for a lot of people. And I mean,
Okay.
if you find a path that's good for you and it connects, I mean, there's also a family line of energy that a lot of times people don't understand, that there's a spiritual energy that comes through our family. Um, I,
Yeah.
it's, you don't, it's kind of like you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the parts like the Catholic religion is well known for making people feel guilty. And
Mm,
I, I'm interested in religion. So I study it. I've been to different Catholic churches. Some of them feel yucky and I don't want to
mm,
be there. So I've been to some that feels like, wow, there's really a lot of good light in here. But then what the priest, is that what they call him, the Catholic, is saying the same thing that the priest was saying in the other church. So there's the
mm.
energetic part of it. I would not, you want to be open to whatever it is. So it could be a religion you have issues with, and your issue might be part of your karma that you need to work through. It could be, well, no, I need to go to a different religion. Or there can be no religion, but the saints, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, Abraham, the Hindi divas, they're all real things. So it's not like what they're saying in the religion is not true. It's just what people use it for in the way, through history to try to get power over people and control them. That part is not, the controlling part is not part of what I'm talking about at all. But
Mm,
there is the
mm.
part of the love that comes through, and whatever clicks inside of you for that. I mean, I have something from a Japanese past life that I like to eat in bowls a lot. It's just kind of funny because
Really?
I always reach for bowls and
Oh, that's so
things like
funny.
that. So if there's something like that in you that kind of clicks, then it's like, oh, let me go with that. What why fight against what is true inside of you? And then if there's a part that's like, no, that's just not true for me, then don't include that part in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I always eat out of cups. It's the funniest thing. I'll eat everything out of a cup with a handle because I like to be able to hold it.
Yeah, there
I
you go.
usually rest on the bench, and I like to be able to hold and eat out of a cup. So everyone laughs at me, my whole family, but my daughter now does it too. It's one of her first choices is to reach for a cup instead of a
That's
bowl or
funny.
a plate.
Yeah,
The whole family will have plates, and I'll be there with my cup, and I'm like, "Leave me alone."
I've
So funny. Now you've got me thinking about all the different things of where it might have come
yeah.
from.
Well, all of those things come from other lifetimes. And so
Ah,
we're like
yeah,
a puzzle of lifetimes, and some pieces of the puzzle are more present in this lifetime, but we want to look for those things and kind of, in one way, we're taught to put the puzzle together in a way that our parents told us to, but you can put the
yeah,
pieces together in a different way, and
yeah.
then it can be more fulfilling and more light filled and um, really joyful for you. It's a great thing.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, another question. I could go down that rabbit hole, but we won't.
Okay.
From Ellen, been having a lot of bad dreams lately. Are there any
Okay.
suggestions on how I can change that into better dreams? I
Yes,
love
you're
this topic.
accessed into, there are all these different levels of consciousness. I'll send the light to you there. There's some of them that are not very nice. So um, So we dream on more than one level at a time. That's part of it. So in the astral and causal level, although that's not the level I'm talking that you're accessed into, but in the astral and causal level, there can be very negative things and there can be positive things. Okay, and actually right now I'm talking, what I do a lot is to keep that person's attention as the light goes in there. There's just a kind of a lot of dark, yucky stuff there. So we want to send the light into there. So there's colors is a really one of the very strong healing tools, and you can purple transmutes and transforms things. There also orange sort of clears and brings in a little bit of energy. And then another thing that's important is spiritual assistance. So you could actually make a list of any of the people I mentioned so far, and there could be others that are in there. So we have, check with Jesus, you can check with the archangels. So there's something called the Great White Brotherhood that can help this person quite a lot. So some of that's clearing up in a nice way right now. So that it's, doing it so quickly, it's hard to know the effect, but a lot of the darkness is clearing up. Okay. Yeah, there's a thing in her consciousness about penitence, like she has to. Is this a woman or?
I believe so, Ellen. So I would
I don't
say
want to.
so.
Yes.
We
Okay.
apologize,
So,
Ellen, if you're
yeah.
not.
So the part of what came in with Jesus is the grace and forgiveness. So we're forgiven for all our sins, basically, and she can know that she's forgiven. She doesn't need to pay any penance for things she's done in other lifetimes. So you want to forgive yourself for anything you did in other lifetimes that might have not served you or served the greater good. And you can just let that go. The thing of putting your hand on your heart and breathing can help for everyone, and your hand on your gut and just breathe in there. So, and then she could feel some of that energy move, it looks like to me.
Oh, that's amazing. It's wonderful. Yeah. And is that something, sorry, it's difficult because I know you're working and I don't really want to talk and distract you.
So
you
can talk, I can do it at the same time.
You can do this and I can, yeah. If someone else was struggling with dreams, I often have a lot of really weird, warped, dark dreams.
Okay.
Is there you're talking about light there?
Yes,
there some
the light
kind
is
of
always good. So yeah, you have a negative
or?
being affecting you when you're sleeping, so we can just ask for that to clear. So usually it's one or those two things I just mentioned, but not always. The good thing about dreams is we get to work through things in our dreams so we don't have to do it in the physical level. So that part's good. Having dark dreams is kind of a blessing that you don't have to have dark things in your life. But for you, there's a demon affecting you when you're sleeping that we can ask to be removed. See how that goes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
There you go. So it looks like that just left there. Did your vision, it looks like your vision just changed a little bit. I don't know if you're seeing it. But...
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to know, really. I'm looking at different things.
Okay.
But thank you. Okay. Welcome, Katie. Yes, you are very, very welcome to ask some questions. It is fantastic to have these questions. So we have another question here for you. How does spirit help us with our human problems? Interesting. Really good question.
Spirit helps us through our positive qualities. Our soul gets expressed through our positive qualities, and for that person, it's kind of like there's a line of things that are the positive qualities, and it's okay to own your positive qualities and have them kind of line up inside of you. So it could be, even being attractive could be it, or being intelligent, or caring, or discerning, or strong, or powerful, whatever those positive qualities are. In a certain way, it's kind of there's the puzzle of our past lives, and then there's the puzzle of our qualities. Now, how do we express those positive qualities? the spirit will support us in our action, and the spirit will not violate our consciousness. So it's giving us a very positive message, but if we don't want to do that, the spirit will, in a certain way, bow down to us, because as humans, we have a lot of authority spiritually, because we can connect to all these different levels. So it is, how do you express your positive quality and then take the next step? And sometimes you don't know what that is, and then the spirit will come in and support you.
Interesting. You said something quite a while back, actually, about
Yeah.
there are no, I think it's when I asked you whether our spirit guides could lead us wrong and then we go down
Yes.
a pathway to learn something. You said there are no wrong ways.
There are. The way I describe it is we're on like a highway with a lot of different lanes in it, and we have to be on the highway pretty much. There's just a lot of lanes in there of kind of how fast we go, how enjoyable it is, or but it, you just can't do something that's not part of it. That's all there is. I mean, even if you're kind of fighting it, that's part of it, which kind of makes sense. But there is the message in us that of what we should be doing, and how do we get to that? Sometimes there are a lot of tricks. A lot of times in what we want is a big way that information comes in. So our soul and our high self communicate to our basic self, which some people call the low self, but I don't like that terminology, because our conscious self, our conscious mind, wants to make sense of everything. So then our basic self is almost trying to trick us into doing the right thing. And if you could listen, and it comes through in what we want. And kind of an innocent example I use, if you want to eat ice cream, that could be it, but it's not eat the whole gallon of ice cream. So what we want in a positive way, then that part of us, our basic self, is very enthusiastic. So if it gets a hint, eating ice cream is the trick, I should eat the whole gallon, that would be it. But no, that's not it. And so a lot of times that first inkling of information that you get is accurate. Then all these things come in, our mind comes in, well, what does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that might not be it. So it is, be very conscious, take the step, check inside again, take a step. A lot of times we can see the end result, but we don't know how to get there. And that's kind of how you do it.
I love that. And that connects back to that previous question around how do I connect with my higher self? I feel like they're quite well interconnected, which is beautiful.
It is kind of important to not get stuck into the high self. You mentioned a spirit guide. I'm always reluctant to even use that with people, because there are things that are guides, but the angels are always there. There's saints, there's so many different things, and we don't want to get like, almost our familiarity will not allow some of the really cool magical things to happen, because there's part of us that our humanness wants something that's familiar. And then it's like, so sometimes there are actually spirit guides, but usually when people ask me about it, it's not spirit guides, and they're connecting to something lower than the things that are there trying to help them. Like angels is something people can usually connect to and not get bogged down in trying to make it all humanish, let's say.
Man, there's so much in this, isn't there? I could see it would be very easy to get overwhelmed. So if you're listening, you're feeling like a bit overwhelmed, please don't worry. That's why we have people like you who we can come and get help from.
Yeah.
So that brings me to we've got loads of questions. I have to jump in with one more.
Okay, yeah.
Why do we carry these things through different lives? Why can't we just start completely fresh? Why do we carry traumas or issues or memories or things which are going to hold us back in this lifetime?
Well, the answer is, the thing you're thinking of as you is not the part that chooses to do this. So the part of you, when the loving energy is there and you just see something and everything looks good, that part is choosing to be, it looks at this like an amusement park, and some of the roller coasters are scary, and that's kind of what it is. So it's, you're talking about why did God create people, and there's the answer that rings true inside of me the most is God wanted to know him or herself more and love him or herself more. And so by creating these things like offshoots of God, basically that was part of it. But it is kind of like a puzzle and a game. And, sometimes I can connect to that, and it's set up so I can see that with people I'm working with all the time, but I can't always see it with myself, and it's set up to do it that way. And one of the great experiences I had in my life is the person who I consider the greatest spiritual master I ever met. He was getting kind of old, so his like assistant or whatever was giving a lecture, and I asked a question about this, and from the back of the room, this person who I admired probably more than anyone ever in this lifetime said, "Join the club." And, it was like, what a relief that this person has a similar experience. And, and I saw some of the healing work he did on other people, and I know what I can do on other people. And then, to do it on myself, it's sometimes you just can't. And luckily, I'm really good at working on my kids, but sometimes it even blocks that because we've set it up so we're having these experiences to learn things. But it's not learning like we would know in our mind. It's a very deep experiential level. So, when people say, "Oh yeah, I know the lesson," it's like, no, you never know well. Sometimes when I've passed through a lesson, it's like I'm thinking, how much would I've had to mess it up to not get through? It's not like I'm and everything's good. It's more like it's a struggle, and you just get through it, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting. Okay, back to the questions now.
Okay.
I've been sidetracked. Does Dr. Brock tend to focus on karmic past life healing, or is it just general? Whatever healing is needed, healing will be focused on. So I guess,
Yes,
you do a whole variety of things, don't you? So
I do. I try to go to the place that is going to get the most bang for your buck, basically, where, so yeah, sometimes I suggest, I usually try to suggest things for people to do. A lot of what I do, there's like sometimes things get healed just like that. And you could look at it as a combination lock with a lot of numbers in it. When a lot of them are lined up, it's easy to get the person to heal, like from a physical thing like that. Sometimes they have to go through a little bit. Like sometimes I'll work on someone, and I warn people of this. I've learned how to do it so it doesn't happen that much, but really the biggest healings happen when people the next day feel worse. And then at the end of that next day, they'll feel better. And it's, once in a while, I'll talk to people and it sounds very medical. I mean, that's not what I do, though. I'm not a medical doctor, and I always tell people that. But usually the negative forms and negative energy, clearing that off and looking for patterns in past lives, those are usually part of the sessions I do. But it can really be anything. I tend to talk more psychologically to people, and that it's like when I work with people, I kind of see this timeline of how they can heal. And then part of it is when I'm talking is to getting them to open their consciousness up to let that energy come in. Sometimes when I'm talking, like I was doing before, I was just talking about something that really was close to what we were talking about, but just to keep the person distracted because their mind was trying to kind of stop it in a funny way.
Yeah, that can happen so easily. Definitely. Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of people saying thank you. That is great. Okay. As a nun in a past life, don't know about that as I haven't had any past life memories or past life regression or anything.
Okay.
Life is different. Okay, so that was Matt who did the healing here and on the stomach. So that's really cool. Hi, Kim Thompson. When I send love to people who have passed, do they feel it? And do our pets who have passed feel it also? That's
Our pets.
yeah.
Do they feel it? I'm just trying to think of how to answer that. So it is, yes, when you, okay, so part of that is you understand our attachment. So sometimes when I'm like with my daughter, she's still alive, but it's, sometimes if you have an emotional attachment to it, it's hard not to put your emotions in there. So it is almost like you, instead of imagining it going right to them directly, you could imagine it going to, like, ask Buddha or Abraham or Jesus to send the light to them or send that prayer to them. So it just kind of purifies it a bit. When you're asking about feeling, it's not quite feeling, but it is kind of getting it. So I have people, I usually, send the light to people and ask for them to be blessed. And sometimes I see them light up in the spirit. So if that does happen, yes. For pets, so with pets, it's a little bit different, but I don't know how to answer that about pets. Well, actually, I do. So sometimes when I'm working with people, their past pet comes in the spirit and helps, which is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Does that person have a pet they're asking about specifically? That's what it seems like, yeah.
I don't know. Kim, do you want to just comment in there whether you have a pet specifically? Just give her a moment. Maybe not. She may
Well,
have
there's a
switched.
lot of light going to a pet, it looks like, so that's fine.
Oh, cool.
It's things are different in the spirit than they are here physically. And even though we're trying to make it seem that way, it is more like a general loving and caring. And it's the part of feeling kind of has a physical implication to it that we would feel it that way. But when we do that, it's kind of like the light increases in that being for a moment there. And it's almost like a tickle of light kind of thing. Yeah. If you have so sometimes when people ask me about relatives, I could see they're not, it's all very, there's no way to explain how this is, to tell you the truth. So everything is from our perception. But so this is not really accurate, but it's a good way to describe it. There are kind of different levels in heaven, let's say. And so sometimes when someone passes, they're not in the highest level they could be. And what I do and what that person is asking about can actually help them. Okay. Again, you need to leave your mind way back and not even think that what you're saying is right. It's more of the intention, or think that you can perceive that being in the way that they are, because you kind of can't, but you kind of can. So it's, it's different. So.
While we're talking about the subject of past loved ones and
Yes.
these types of subjects, there's a theory that I've heard a few times. If somebody dies suddenly,
Yes.
that there is a place that you go to for healing. Would where they go for a time. So people ask, why is my loved one not with me?
Yes.
And I've researched different things, and one of the things was that there may be a phase where they have to go away for a time to have some healing, so they won't be able to communicate, they won't be able to connect to us for this time while they're having healing. Would that healing, is that a part of one of these levels in heaven? And why would the healing necessarily need to take place?
That
If
is
it's
a
been a
good question.
physical
Again, you're
trauma.
asking these questions so I have never heard that specifically, but in one
Okay.
way, any being that's in these levels there's a kind of healing that goes on. Sometimes when people die very suddenly, and then there's different I mean, So there are things that get kind of lost in this level, and we can help them move on. Usually the way to do that is you can use your creative imagination to introduce them to a saint. And the first thing to check is the saint of the religion they were born into. And if that doesn't work, then you can just sort of guess. And as far as the greatest number of people on the planet, Jesus is the one that works for the greatest number of people at this time. So if you're not sure, that's a good place to start. But that Jesus doesn't work for everybody, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting, because I've heard of this healing concept, and
it's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Really interesting.
It's kind of like this thing that just makes everything line up, and we're kind of experiencing that when we're alive physically, like things are moving in that direction, and there's a movement in spirit that is always there.
Yeah, I guess so. I just find it interesting with, if we have a physical trauma, then we have this place of healing and a spiritual.
It's a good way.
But I guess we never know what's going on spiritually, and maybe there was some spiritual trauma that happened as the impact of that physical trauma. We will never know because we don't see it, and there are no ways to explain these things, which I kind of love.
There is a way. I've decided to not use that because we kind of know, we know in a different way. And the way during my near-death experience, it wasn't very verbal at all. It was just more a feeling, and that same way is there. We do know, and we know in the same way I was saying, the spirit, our soul comes through in our positive qualities, that kind of way we know. And I think everyone has experiences where things just kind of click inside of them. Then we know. Then our mind comes in and goes, oh, what is that? We want to line it up with something very concrete, and that we don't know that way, but we do know in other ways.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're going back over to these questions. It's more of a comment from Susie. I'm very empathetic and experience psychic attack a lot. I find it hard and keep clearing and protecting myself. I feel invaded constantly. Thanks for the healing. So
I'll send some light there. That kind of thing. There's so the purple light is something that person can do. Like, imagine purple light around them. They have a hole in their energy field, so that would make sense. They have some witchcraft affecting them. That would have something to do with it too. And there's another thing, like a hypnotic, that they can just let that go. How old is that person? Can you ask them?
I have no idea. If you're happy to put up in, Susie, how old you are, that may help. Maybe a small delay on comments.
That's fine. Doesn't matter. Just so in all of the things you want to, and I mean, sometimes it's just someone else's stuff, but there has to be some sort of opening there and a reason that it's there, and not in the way, again, it's kind of like the learning the lesson. We don't know what it is, because usually it's things from other lifetimes, why it happened. So it's either we did something similar to someone else, or we submitted to that in another lifetime, kind of thing. And then it's like, well, can you just look at the forgiveness, the spiritual assistance, and the colors? Those are the three main healing things. So you can ask for, I'd be curious to see how that person's feeling now, because their energy field looks way, way better.
Oh, that's good. She says she's 60 years old. So
let
us know how you're feeling, if you can. Okay, we'll just move on to some other ones. We've got a few questions backing up here. Miriam, hello, this is also very interesting. I have just begun to practice meditation. Where
Great.
does one begin and who should I try to connect with as a beginner?
What was the first part besides connecting with?
Um, where does one begin and who should
Okay.
I begin to try and connect with?
The meditation on my YouTube channel, the Basic Soul Meditation, is really good. Um,
All right.
so you want to start with very, very high beings and keep the thing I'm saying is a lot of times it's kind of vague, the information we get, and it's more of a general feeling. And try to not go for the specific part. So it so the purpose in my way I look at things is like to know our divinity, to have enthusiasm and joy and things like that. Okay. There are So our third eye has a few different parts to it, and we want to try to activate, if we're doing this, the top part, which is very connected to the spirit. And a lot of times it comes it is kind of not as concrete as some people would like. Okay, so just be open to positive, good things. When if we want to start, so sometimes still masters and things come in for me and I don't know who they are. And part of me would like to know, but I can tell as soon as I'm doing that, I'm eliminating this really good thing from happening. I wouldn't suggest trying to see our past relatives. I would suggest trying to let in the Christ energy or energy, something comparable to that, as opposed to seeing the specifics like you're talking about. If there's a certain tradition that appeals to you, that's really fine. Like I said, when I'm working with people, I'm really looking for healing to take place and this certain opening to happen to them, whether the information is right or not. Like sometimes people say, how do you know? I go, I don't really care if the person's getting better. If you're having more happiness in your life, if things having more abundance in your life, having more love in your life, that's the part that really matters.
Definitely more love. I
But
love that.
remember, it's probably way higher than you're thinking. Like when I said, when people start to ask me about guides, usually they're connecting to a much lower thing than they can. Okay, so that is way, way up there, way, 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 way up there. And that when you do that, it's like, oh, there's that thing that just brings in this positive energy. Then our mind will start to come in and try to see what it looks like. It's like, no, don't do that. Like, just keep going higher and keep going higher.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Susie says, thank you very much. She's feeling 40% better. So that's
Good.
the one just before. So that's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. Does everyone go to heaven? Is the highest level when you have learned all the lessons you need to, or do we always come back?
There is a way when we don't come back, and kind of, yes, like I said, the lessons are it's good to have a teacher, to tell you the truth. I mean, I wish it was you could do it yourself, but generally you can't. But kind of, yes, there is a place where you don't return. There will be a time when humans do not return, and there'll be a different species. So at some point, everyone will make it.
Wow. Are you happy to expand on that? That's a really interesting concept.
Yeah. Again, you asked me things like, I have no idea. So I could see if I can get information about it. But
All right.
well, the answer is be gentle and loving with yourself and do your best to do good things, to be of service. I mean, first to yourself. You have to be good to yourself first. Take care of yourself first, and then, then your family, and then your community, and that kind of thing, and doing good things. Understand that everything that you're going through, and I'm saying this, it's easy to look at your life and say this, and it's like, oh yeah, I need to remember that too. I have a teenage daughter. She's a great kid, and she's a teenager. And it's, there's
Yeah.
times that it's a bit of a struggle. And like I said, sometimes I get through a test and I'm thinking, really, like, how much would I've had to mess up to not get through it? And
Yeah.
because sometimes it's hard, and that part is important. So it's kind of like the answer to the question is in the highest levels. So there are infinite number of levels, but we don't need to look at it that way. So we have the astral, causal, mental, etheric levels, and those are they're obviously invisible, but they're kind of very similar to, well, they're not the highest spiritual levels. And above that is the soul level. In the soul level, it is like there's almost hardly anything there. When I connect into there, the first thing I do is see like a bluish purplish light and feel this thing kind of drawing me up. But in there, and in the astral and causal level, this is similar, but this is a little different. We can use our creative imagination to create these majestic, wonderful places for us. So we have a way to go to those levels where our human part can actually do it. And then you go there and it just just imagine, I have a place, there's a lake and all this cool stuff. It could be in a city, it could be on the beach, it could be in the woods, just that place. And you connect to that high place, and then you start to feel the spiritual energy come inside of you. And that's what we're talking about. And that's the way to go into those more positive things that you're asking about.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting. Thank you. There's so much in this conversation. I feel like I need to go on. I'm going to have to watch this over and over again to get every little piece because there's so much in this. We've got a question from Ellen again. I've been interested in NDEs for a very long time. I've never had one myself, but I love hearing about them. I'm wondering how that is integrated into my life path. I'm 55.
You mean hearing about them, or?
Well, probably that interest, I assume. Feel free to correct us, Alan, with another comment. I've been interested in NDEs for a very long time, never had one myself, but love hearing about them. Wondering how this has integrated into my life path. I'm 55.
Oh, how it has? The thing of the NDEs is people connect into the spirit, and you can do that without having a near-death experience. So there's kind of two parts to it. The part of actually, for me, getting my head banged open, I don't ever want to do that again. But that part of connecting into the spirit and learning how to do that, and you can do that. So you don't need to have an NDE. It does help to have teachers. I can't impress that enough. But do on my YouTube channel, I have the meditation. I have other exercise to do that will definitely help. And there is a whole lot of part of realizing some of it almost like, yeah, I'm just going to connect to that high place. Like, don't worry about the who's, what's, where's, and why's. You just do it. So everyone is spiritual, whether they're aware of it or not. And so instead of thinking, oh, how do I do this? It's kind of like you just do it. But we have to work with our mind and stuff to let us just do it. But there's part of it. So that person now is connecting into that energy a lot. And the reason hearing NDE is so good is because they're connecting into these very high levels. I even say, it's like I just wasn't listening. I wasn't seeing the signs. And then you have an NDE, it's like there's no denying it because your body's not there in the way. So, if you're feeling that as, yes, I'd like to be in that place, obviously you don't want to be in the place where your body's dying, but you want to be in that place that the spirit is and do things to do that. And it takes practice and work. It's sort of like working out your muscles. You got to go to the gym if you want to have strong muscles. If you want to strengthen your spiritual abilities, you meditate. If you look at that basic soul meditation and learn how to do it, even if you do it just a couple of minutes per day, it can help a lot.
Fabulous. We're going to put the link to that. So once we are done here, I'll come in and add some comments with the links to the basic soul meditation and your website, things like that. It's been wonderful. Yes, unless anybody has any final little questions that they want to just get in there, you've got about, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 seconds while I chat a little bit. That'll be your last chance to get in there. But Dr. Laurence Brock, this has just been absolutely fabulous. Like I say, I feel like I need to go back and rewind because there's so many treasures in here. There's so many nuggets of gold and interesting conversations. We have been a bit sporadic, but I think that's really great as we have actually answered some questions.
It's good.
There's
And just
more that I
when
want
you
to.
do, just keep breathing and letting go, because there's part of it that it just doesn't make sense. But it's better than what makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
keep that in mind. Yeah.
One last request before we go.
Okay.
Without wanting to sound selfish, could I ask for some light to be sent to me as I'm
Sure.
concerned my body may be injured and needs surgery? Thank you.
Yeah.
Need to know more, or you can run with that?
Yeah, I can send the light to that person. That's really
Okay.
no problem. So they're typing. So you're not in luck.
I know
Yeah, they
nothing
want to
about
tell
them.
you what the problem is.
Feel free to tell us your problem if you want to. It may be a bit public. Yeah. That's all we know.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's in one way I don't really need to know. It just helps sometimes if the person thinks of it. So maybe they started to. Yeah, I'm just very used to connecting, doing the healing work to talking, because I'm usually talking to people when I'm doing the healing work, so it's all good. So we'll just send the light to that person. Yeah, so that person something that would help is like imagine a rainbow, like all the different colors around them. That would be helpful.
I've got, it's a right inaugural hernia reoccurrence.
Okay.
So hernia, yeah.
So then, I start to see glimpses of a past life connected to that. So we can just ask for that to be cleared. Yeah, it looks like they were a laborer of some sort that that the people they worked for didn't really care about how their body was. So, I'll just send the light there, and so that might help.
Okay. I hope that helps. If that does help, please let us know, because we love to have all of the positive, what do you call it, the feedback. It just really helps if we know how things are helping for people after they've had these experiences and things. Okay, last comment from Kim. I'm sorry I'm behind. Yes, my dog Balto died 6 weeks ago very suddenly and unexpected. She's been devastated. Oh, Kim, that's really tough. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, we'll send the light to your dog, which went there immediately before you even finished telling me, which is cool. So. Yeah, you don't have to worry. Your dog is fine now. It was good you mentioned your dog. That's good.
Oh, that's wonderful. Again, I really hope that helps you, Kim. Okay, lots of wonderful comments. Last one, you're a good man. And I can totally reaffirm that. This has been fabulous. If you've enjoyed this, just give us a little like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, a thank you, something like that. We so appreciate you coming in and chatting with us. And I know that a lot of people have had some healing experiences today.
Yeah.
I've certainly had a lot of questions answered. A lot more questions have developed. And that's the nature of the work that I do. Every day I learn, and every day I think far out, I know nothing.
One of my first teachers would always say, it's not the answer, it's the question. So
it's the start of many, many questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you to everyone that has joined us online. I'm going to jump and put some comments if you're looking for the links for things to get hold of Dr. Laurence Brock, that meditation that he's mentioned. Wow, I just feel blessed. So thank you so much.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget to tune
Really
into our future episodes. And if you want to know more, we have a lot more detailed discussion about Laurence's near-death experience. You can go backtrack about a year ago And that is a very, very interesting conversation that we had back then. Thank you so much. We wish you well. And to everyone that's tuned in, wish you well. There's some thank yous coming in there. Send your love. Share this with your friends. Let's help the world to do what we need to do, what everyone needs to do. So much love to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.